Hello again. Just having a little bit of lunch. A plate of saucisson and some salami that I make myself. It's beautiful stuff. It really is tasty. I make this quite regularly and it's really cheap. It's a kilogram of pork mince. I use just plain pork mince from the supermarket. I try and find the fattiest content because if you look at the recipes for this, it should be 30% pork, 30% fat to 70% lean pork. So I find the fattiest mince I can in the shops, which is good because it's usually the cheapest. And in the UK we actually write it on the fat content, and if you look you can get 5%, 10%, 20%. I think that's the highest my supermarket does, and the 20% is the cheapest. So I can get a kilogram of pork mince for maybe about £4, something like that, £5. It's not expensive at all. And what you end up with is sausage like this. When they're whole, they're twice as long, so it's about 30 centimetres, and you get 3 of them sausages from a kilogram of pork. So it works out really economical. £5 for a kilo of saucisson. If you look online, you want to buy it commercially, you're going to be paying about, well, I've seen it about £30, £35 for a kilogram of saucisson. And it's the same as well for salami. In fact, salami is actually quite more expensive, maybe £40 for a kilogram of salami. You can make it yourself really easy in about half an hour, although it takes a month to dry out, but you can make the sausages in about half an hour for the cost of about £5. For the saucisson, I spice it with what's called quatre spices, or four spices, and it's a really simple mix. It's very classic to French cooking. I use, for example, 2 tablespoons of ground white pepper. I will then add to that a tablespoon, so 2 tablespoons of ground white pepper, a tablespoon of nutmeg, a tablespoon of ground cloves, and a tablespoon of, I think it was, cinnamon. So for me personally, saucisson, it's more of like an autumn sausage as opposed to a summertime sausage, because of all those spices, the nutmeg, the clove. Reminds me of autumn. And I would actually pair this with an amber ale or a brown ale. That would go really well. The salami, on the other hand, has black pepper, chili flakes, and so it's very spicy. Very light notes. It's almost like the salami is the soprano and the saucisson is the baritone or the alto. And so for this I would pair it with a nice light hoppy pale ale or a blonde ale, or a nice I've got garlic in it as well. I can just taste it. Or a nice citrusy Pilsner, German Pilsner, with a nice citrus bite at the back. That would do lovely. So yeah, next time I make this, and I do make it quite regularly, it's just at the moment my fridge is full of everything. The bresaola, by the way, that's nearly finished. We have to get to a minimum of 700 grams, but it can go lower than that. And we're at about 780 grams now, so it's actually dropping the weight. So I think in another week or 2 that'll be done. But I might leave it a bit longer because I don't like my meats to be too moist. I quite like them on the firmer drier side, so I might wait until it gets close to about 650 and then I'll slice into it and we'll have a taste. But yeah, it's just full. I've got duck in there drying, I've got these sausages, the salamis, the saucisson, but when I make it again and I've cleared some space out, which is I'm cleaning it out of my clear space in the fridge to fill up this. But when I've made some space, I'll make this again and I'll video it for you. And then this afternoon, what am I going to do? Well, I'm brewing. I'm brewing a kit this time, and I thought I'd video myself because kits are really easy to make. If you've never made a beer before, you should start with a kit, and in fact most people do. I still make kits because they're so convenient. You can actually put the whole thing together in about 20 minutes, half an hour, and that's it. You just got to let it ferment then. And the kit I'm going to be brewing is Australian bitter, Morgan's Australian bitter. And to it I'll be adding a brew enhancer, which is just a mixture of sugar and extra light malt, and of course yeasts. Now, I've brewed this beer before, but I made a mistake because in the UK bitters refer to ales, so I thought it was like an Australian version of an English ale, so I brewed it with ale yeast. I've since found out it's a lager. Now, I have a problem with lagers because lager yeast likes to ferment at 10 or 12 degrees, so very low. Ale yeast, you're sorted. It ferments at about 18, 20, 22 degrees, which is room temperature. So they're very easy. Also with a lager, you've got to be able to store it somewhere at about 1 degree for at least a month, if not 6 weeks, 2 months. Some brewers store them for 3 months. Well, I have nowhere to store it. All my fridge is full with meat. So I can't store it anywhere, and I can't brew at those low temperatures. I have to brew at either room temperature or above. I can raise temperature. I've got brew belts, I've got brew mats, heating mats, so I can raise the temperature, but I can't lower it. So I can't actually make lager. What I do is make pseudo lagers, and I make it with the yeast. I use special yeasts that give a lager quality to the beer but can be brewed at room temperature. And the two that I usually use is a California Common. So this is a sachet of brewer's yeast. It's a California Common, and this is like a hybrid lager yeast that will allow you to ferment at room temperature. The lower the better still, so 18, 19 degrees is perfect, but it will tolerate up to about 22 or 24 degrees. So I tend to use yeast like this. Or there's another yeast that's very similar, and it's a Saflager 3470. Again, it's like a hybrid sort of lager yeast that will tolerate room temperature during fermentation. So I've usually used one of these two yeasts with great success. But I thought this week I would experiment a little. And so what I'm using is this. This is a slurry, a yeast slurry, and it's called Lutra. Now Lutra's a Kveik yeast. I've used Kveik before. I've used the Boss and I've used Oslo. But what I find is that they give really nice citrus flavours to the beer. The Voss is a lovely orange flavour, and these are perfect for pale ales, blonde ales, which have a nice hoppiness to them because the yeast complements those hops. All those nice citrusy flavours from the yeast really marry well with the hops. But this is going to be a lager. and I don't really want orange in my lager. The Oslo, maybe, that was more citrusy, that was lemony. But this yeast is ultra clean. It says it's super clean fermenting, so it leaves no flavour in the actual beer. So I thought I'm going to give this a go. Another advantage, of course, of Kveik yeast is you can brew them. In fact, they're happier being brewed at 30 degrees C or above. That's about 90, I think, in Fahrenheit. That's that's really warm for brewing beer. As I said, when I'm brewing ales, I don't like to go above, well, 22 if I can help it, but I certainly don't want to be going above 24. I actually like to keep it around about 19 or 20 degrees. But I'm going to be brewing this at about 30, 32. So there's a big difference. But this yeast is actually comfortable and more efficient at those higher temperatures. And here's the thing, because you're brewing it at such a high temperature, after 2 days you're finished. That's it, fermentation over. You've hit your final gravity and you're ready literally to bottle. 2 to 3 days, that's all it takes. Normally I keep beer in a fermenter for a minimum of 10 days, up to 2 weeks, even beyond. So this is a really efficient yeast to use. You're bottling on day 2 or day 3, and it's just as efficient at carbonating the beer in the bottle as it is fermenting the beer. So after 2 days in the bottle, you're moving it into a cool place to stop that carbonation. One of the problems with Voss that I had was that it produced a lot of gushers. You know, you open up the bottle and half your beer's on the ceiling, you know, because it's just too overcarbed. So you've got to really be good with your timings. And because of that, when I'm brewing this evening, I'll be washing all the bottles ready. You've got to really be that quick. Another problem with Kveik is it tends to flocculate, very high flocculation. Now, if you don't know what that means, it's the characteristic of yeast that when it's finished fermentation, they clump together and fall out of suspension. So you end up with all the slurry at the bottom of the fermenting bucket. Usually this happens quite slowly, and so it's still safe to bottle after about 2 weeks, because there's still enough yeast in suspension to then carbonate the beer. But with this yeast, you can find if you leave it too long after fermentation's finished, there's not enough yeast to go into your bottles. It's all fallen out. So you've got to be really quick on your timings. You've got to keep your eye on the beer whilst it's fermenting, and as soon as it's finished, get it into bottles before it all falls out. Then once it's in the bottles, to avoid them gushers, again you've got to be really sharp. You've got to continually, every day, test those bottles. I use the plastic bottles because you can squeeze them. And as soon as they've gone rock hard, you know carbonation has finished or is at a satisfactory level. What you don't want to do with this, though, is leave it any longer. As soon as they've gone hard, move them to a cooler place, and that'll slow that process right down, and it will force the yeast to drop out of suspension. So you've really got to be on your toes with Kveik. That's why I'm brewing today, but I'm also getting all my bottles ready, washed, sanitised, everything. So as soon as that's finished fermenting, they're in the bottle before I'll lose any yeast. And then when they're in the bottle, every 12 hours or so, I'll be squeezing them to make sure that I don't cause any more gushers. But yeah, this is going to be interesting. And what's amazing is I could be drinking this time next week. So I might be doing a review next week of a finished beer. that I'm only just starting this afternoon. Incredible yeast. It's an incredible yeast. Okay, thanks for watching. I'm getting back to my wine and my sausage, and it's going to be an interesting Thursday when I make this Kveik beer, and you'll be surprised just how easy it is to put a kit beer together. And kit beers are really nice. The technology now that they use in kit beers means that you're going to get a commercial quality brew out of it. So I'll see you on Thursday when I make the beer, and who knows, next Sunday when I'm drinking that same beer. See ya.